those kind of combinations of just taking away the complication from some of the meal kits that we had and offering kind of predetermined combinations and having and factoring in like a next day delivery, I've seen our conversion rate increase by and some weeks over 100%.
So you used to be the London delivery manager at Pret.
I was, yes.
Then 3 days before lockdown, you joined Gales to lead on rebuilding the website and repurpose the deliveries from corporate focused to more home delivery focused. What a project.
As you just said, I kind of joined 3 days before lockdown. I think my training went as far as having 3 days in bakery and learning how to bake products, and that was kind of as far as we got. And then it was a case of the news broke that we were going to be in a national lockdown. I originally had joined the business as with a focus on growing the corporate arm and sort of the overall delivery. With that in mind, obviously 3 days into my role, lockdown happens and the business then needed to pivot across to be able to pick up home delivery. There was no corporate. Literally, if you logged into the back end of our platform, you could just see corporate order after corporate order just being cancelled off of the system as people just decided to work at home. It was quite drastic time, so it was a case of how do we combat this and what can we do? And I think the great thing at Gales was the fact that Gales had all of the products that everybody else was struggling to get, so bread, milk, yeast, all of the products that were essential items that people just couldn't get from supermarkets. So it made repurposing the website and changing the focus of delivery to grocery away from corporate that little bit easier.
And you took out some sites to become the delivery spaces. It was innovating that space to support the new strategy to deliver for home.
It was exactly that. Gales are very lucky in terms of a lot of their bakeries it's very urban, they're in neighbourhoods. The flip side of that is that there was some central London locations that were just completely dead because there was no commuters. Central London was very, very quiet. So it was an opportunity then to repurpose some of those bakeries to fulfill online orders. So we basically turned them into, I guess, what would be called a dark kitchen. But yeah, repurposed all them, which was interesting.
Now you found your place in DirtyBones, and you are head of deliveries and e-commerce, looking at how to elevate the eat-at-home experience for DirtyBones. So many businesses and restaurants have focused on deliveries, and I think it's when you emailed me that how to elevate that home experience. I think it is exciting to think about what's the new innovation that can come from that.
Yeah, for sure. We think that there's a massive opportunity in that delivery. It existed before COVID. It will exist long after COVID. And it was a case of how do we start to kind of maximise that and build out on what we've already established during lockdown. Our meal kits, there's no plans to remove them. We didn't see them as just a revenue channel to get through lockdown. We really want to make those part of everyday life and really have an opportunity to sell to people for different occasions, whether it's an anniversary or a date night or someone's birthday, or just because you fancy doing something different at the weekend. We want our meal kits to really kind of be a prominent feature in what we offer. And the same with our home delivery. If you can't get into one of our restaurants, we want to be able to elevate our own brand through delivery to offer something that's a little bit different at home and really take that restaurant experience to your kitchen table.
So many venues went down the delivery route, and a lot of businesses have stepped back from that. It was never going to be part of their core model. It wasn't the thing that drove them to be these venues, restaurants experience, kind of customer facing and building that kind of in-house atmosphere, if you like. But you guys actually are seeing this as a long-term strategy and actually leaning into it. And I know that you've got your barbecue home kits. So not only are you developing a product that lasts you through these challenging times, but also actually seeing the opportunity to develop and evolve that offering according to what people are looking for.
Yeah, we've like I say, we just released our barbecue kit. We released the first batch as a bit of a limited edition. They sold really well, they've been really popular, which we've been pleased with, and we want to carry on doing that. Like I said, there's lots of occasions throughout the course of a year that we think that that we could lend our products to, or lend themselves well to, like a DirtyBones comfort food in your own home. I think you're right in what you're saying. Lots of companies turn to delivery as a method of keeping the business afloat during lockdown. Those that have done really well out of delivery have really kind of amended their operations to be able to look after delivery. I think if you go back before lockdown, delivery existed before lockdown happened, and I think then the brands that were doing really, really well had the attitude of treating delivery as a separate revenue stream, a different arm of the business. I think historically there's been times where delivery has been seen as a bit of a pain and a bit of a bolt-on and an invisible customer, and always probably the first thing that suffers when the in-venue or the coffee shop or whoever is doing delivery, when it becomes busy, delivery is always the first thing to suffer. Whereas during lockdown, that kind of it's not an invisible customer anymore. Actually, it is just your customer. They're just not present in your restaurants or in your venues anymore.
And how do you continue to nurture that customer when they are, I mean, the visible, invisible, we mean in venue and we mean online. In those, is that what we're sort of seeing as visible and invisible in this example?
Yeah, and I think that's how it's been sort of treated, especially kind of going back before lockdown happened, is that if food was going to go out for delivery, some brands, then that would be the first part of the business it would suffer, because if you're taking food out to a table and it's not right, you're going to get that feedback in live time, where the invisible customer, where it's boxed up, it's hidden, it goes out to, via a delivery partner out to a customer, and then you hear the feedback digitally, which then normally goes somewhere centrally and then goes out to restaurants after that. So sometimes it's to another level, and I think actually everyone has seen the value of it. And I think that in the general landscape, deliveries have been really important, not just because of food delivery, but other industries of where they perhaps wouldn't have looked into sort of exploring that digital space, have gone down the digital route for deliveries, and it's played a big part in even just being able to have your local favourite restaurant delivered at home, be it in the form of a meal kit or through a delivery partner. It's just given somebody just a little bit of happiness on what has been sort of quite bleak times when we've all been stuck inside for long periods. And it's really helped the vulnerable that couldn't get medicine or grocery shopping or whatever the case may be. But I think deliveries as a whole is really kind of elevated over the last 12 months through various channels and through different reasons, and we've seen so many businesses that have, like I say, transitioned across that maybe wouldn't have even thought about operating a delivery service, and they've seen the value to it.
And operationally, we've got the third-party partners that need to be used in a lot of cases to get that exponential growth. It's an interesting area to navigate, because in e-commerce, for example, there are affiliates and partners that would sell products that would link back to you, and you do pay them a commission. So in that same model, it's comparative, but it's slightly different in that customer, the sale, the data goes to that third party. There's a lot of conversation in the sector at the moment about how to keep hold of that data. Do we take more in-house deliveries? Do we put the effort into growing our own in-house deliveries, or do we put the effort into building the relationships with the delivery partners to make sure that those audiences are maximised, the marketing to that data and those audiences are made the most of, because that's what those big delivery guys do best.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head in terms of how do you get around that, and that's certainly a challenge, probably now more so than ever, with so many brands that are now going to keep the delivery that they've built over lockdown. That's so competitive. If you go into any of the delivery partners, everybody is running offers. It's very difficult to get the commercials right, because you know that you're going to give away a large percentage in terms of commission, so it doesn't leave you a great deal if you start to run 25% off or 20% off campaigns, which lots of brands are doing. That challenge of trying to trying to understand the kind of customer behaviour when you don't get any customer data is very, very difficult. I think the way that we see it is that if we can draw more attention to our brand, that might translate into, oh, I've seen DirtyBones online with a mass following that some of the delivery partners have got. That might then translate itself into people finding a way into venue, or finding our meal kits, or exploring the brand a little bit more, but they've discovered it through a delivery partner. But certainly understanding the customer behaviour and understanding how you kind of cut through with some of the marketing campaigns that you want to run is a challenge.
What are some of the simple things from your experience? You've managed deliveries with Pret, Gales, Ocado. You must have a lot of experience on the kind of typical pitfalls or challenges that might be quite simple. There's a lot of people going into this setting up from scratch. What are some of the kind of elements to delivery that just make a big difference in its success?
Good question. I think
simple, such an annoying word.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm like, what's easy about deliveries? Kitty, it's very complicated.
It certainly can be difficult and a challenge, because typically you'll see your spike in order volume match your in-venue spike. So Friday night between 5 and 8 o'clock, you know you're probably going to have, if you look at this venue, this will be busy in a couple of hours time, as it will be on delivery. So balancing the two is always difficult, depending on how you fulfill delivery. If you're fulfilling it from a venue, or if you're fulfilling it from a dark kitchen, obviously it comes with kind of different challenges. I mean, I would say that if I was going to kind of keep it very top line, and perhaps with 3 things that I would say are the most important simple aspects to make sure that you're performing well through delivery, would be attitude would be the first one. And I think that actually that would start at the top of the company. So your CEO and directors need to buy into delivery. It can't be seen as a bolt-on that people run, because it will come to a natural kind of curtail where you won't be able to push it any further. So it needs to buy in from the people at the top end of the business to say, actually, this is how we're going to invest in delivery, this is how we're going to operate delivery. We don't want to damage the experience for dining in any way. This is the investment that we're going to make to be able to make that happen. I think the second thing is great execution, in making sure that everything is as good as it can to actually kind of operationalise, and making sure that the people in the room that just come through on a paper ticket get treated the exact same way that if you've got a dinner party for 10, 12, 15 people in a restaurant. There's no difference between the two. Great care and attention, making sure that you're sound on all of your delivery KPIs, you don't have riders waiting, and making sure that, like I say, it is seen as another revenue stream to the business. And probably the third point would be having a great product, which again sounds really simple, right? But if there are 3 things, if you've got the attitude and the buy-in from the top end of the business, and the investment needed to make sure that your site or venues are set up for delivery, having great execution, and having something really good to sell, and it might mean that you might have to make subtle changes to recipes or packaging, or something that allows your product to survive transportation out to a customer, and that could be in any format, whether it's a delivery partner for a meal that's going out on a Friday or Saturday night, or it's a meal kit that's going out via the post to someone. You need to make sure that any of your recipes stand up to going out to a customer, to make sure that that experience is as good as it can be.
In my reading and investigating into this the last year, the thing that stood out the most about the challenges that people had was that extended customer service. Less so when it was an in-house service, an in-house delivery, but more so when it would disconnect from the brand themselves. And the customer service seemed to be one of the most mentioned elements in the conversations that I've had with restaurants and delivery companies. And I think that that's so poignant of the moment that we're in. And I was thinking, when you have a delivery, especially when you go via a third party, the 2 important things that you have to connect with someone is the food, obviously, and the kind of feeling and care that you get from that, and that's your customer service. Also, coming back to your first point about elevating that at-home experience, How do you then extend and expand on that customer service from delivery? That, along with branding and a strong brand, a strong image, a strong identity, I think those are kind of really important things for someone to really connect to if they are only going through delivery.
I agree, and that's something that we're kind of working on at the moment, is to, like, how do we get to that point where we take what we currently have and kind of take it on to the next level. It's always very difficult because you are relying on a third party, whoever that may be, to care as much about your brand as you do. I'm always a big fan of where you can, if you can implement your own delivery service. It's certainly something that we're looking to do at DirtyBones, for that ownership of the customer data, not just because you want to go out and really target and market to these people, but you're far more in control of having that end-to-end journey and that end-to-end relationship where if something does go wrong, their customers are coming back to us and we get that opportunity to correct it and put it right should we fall short in some way. So I'm very much a fan of trying to implement your own delivery service as and when you can. It was something that we had at Pret, and it was something that was at Gales. I probably learnt that through my time at Ocado, when obviously we owned our own drivers. It was part of the business, so you would deal with all kind of customer interactions. We've touched on the simple, complicated stuff, which on the surface sound really simple, but actually, quite difficult to implement. I think if I was going to pull out kind of three things, the difficult things for delivery, is that one, the technology and how you bring all of that into one or two platforms. When if you're going to go out and partner with a Just Eat, an Uber Eats, a Deliveroo, a Ritual, anyone that's kind of out there that is offering a similar service, how do you avoid that mass of tablets clogging up the kitchen and being able to push it through to one EPOS system, or pushing it through to clear kitchen display screens, so that your back of house team are not being confused. I've lost count of how many times I've either been into venue or I've been out to restaurants for something to eat, and you look back at house and you can see a board nailed to the wall that's got like 5 or 6 different tablets on it, and it's going off every couple of minutes, and chefs are frantically pulling out tickets and trying to align it with what they're actually doing for dine-in guests. I think that is a real challenge. Some really good companies out there, some really good middleware companies that will help cure that, but I think that's a challenge that probably everyone has seen. I think the other one would be the marketing and customer insight, how you harness some of the limited customer data that you have, and you start to kind of make the most of that in creating marketing campaigns that cut through, especially when you're, like I say, commercially having to pay, sort of a fair chunk of average order value goes out in commission. Probably the last one would be like how you manage, the complication of how you manage through the peaks and dips of delivery. So you're going to be busy at the same time as your venue is going to be busy, or if you've got a dark kitchen, how do you utilise the rest of the time? So if you know that your core hours are going to be between 5 and 8 o'clock Friday, Saturday night, or any evening of the week, it'd be how do you capitalise on that space? So what else can you be doing with your dark kitchen space or your venue space or whatever the case may be, to really kind of capitalise on that, so you're sweating the asset basically. Is there other brands that you might to be able to put in from a virtual point of view to be able to keep your dark kitchens busy throughout the day?
And what have been the sort of biggest challenges that you faced in your career so far with setting up deliveries?
I think the biggest challenge was during my time at Pret, when we implemented from the ground up a complete delivery service. We took the Hong Kong market in Pret, so there was at the time 16 shops I think, and we took it from a paper and pen and quite literally writing on menus. So we had many customers that would come in first thing. The shops in Hong Kong were really well located, so they were in really big sort of office blocks of tens of thousands of people. But in the morning, people would come in for their morning coffee, and then they would write down on the back of a menu what they wanted for lunch, and they would give it to the general manager, and then some kind of like magic happens, and then all of a sudden our catering would just find its way onto the 15th floor at the right time.
Oh my God.
We had to digitise.
What year was this? 1802?
No, it was 3 years ago, maybe 3.5 years ago.
Amazing.
So it was. It's a crazy market. You can quite literally get anything delivered in Hong Kong. Every independent retailer will offer delivery of some kind, even if it's someone that just turns up on their bike. So we had to kind of get away from that. So it was a case of building a system from the ground up. So back of house screens, ordering screens, so shops knew what they had for the next 10 days for delivery, to allow them to plan ahead for labour and for ingredients to make sure they're producing the right food. Giving the customer the ability to pay on an account and not just pay cash. Team members not having to come out with PDQ machine and then pray that they can connect to something to be able to take car payments from people. That was a real challenge. And then when you throw on top of that, it's 6,000 miles away, an 8-hour time difference, I think, and then you have to have the website in dual language. That was probably one of the hardest things that we had to do. Wow. I remember when we first put the site live, changing that customer behaviour and getting people to move across online was probably the hardest thing. Right down to the fact that I know that our infrastructure team hated me for quite a long period of time, because we had a couple of customers that just refused to move online. So what was happening is that on a daily basis they would email or fax pictures of their card front and back through to our shops, which then I was alerted to, and we had to get the infrastructure team to go in and delete all of those emails so we didn't hold anyone's card details. It was really a challenge. So not only building something from scratch, but also then having to change the customer behaviour to accompany that was quite difficult and a real challenge. But also very interesting the fact that we didn't necessarily need delivery partners, because Hong Kong is so densely populated and because the location of quite a few of our shops, it is a case of going up rather than out most of the time. So it's a case of jumping in lifts and going up sort of 50, 60 floors to deliver stuff rather than walking a couple of miles down the road.
It wasn't an audience, it wasn't a market, it wasn't a customer issue. It was actually the fact that you were going upstairs.
Yeah, we're fulfilling sort of 95% of orders with prep staff, because there was simply no need to. You had a captive audience that were quite literally above you in some cases, in some of the biggest buildings in the world. That was part of the delivery service, was actually fulfilling the operations and not just capturing the order at the front end, passing it through to the correct shop, fulfilling the order. It was actually physically then fulfilling the order in terms of taking it to the customer. And going back to that point where we spoke about earlier around the marketplace providers, and how do you take that on to the next level where you don't have that end-to-end relationship. That kind of almost didn't exist in Hong Kong, which was one why it was really important that we got the system right, but also got the service right as well, because we were actually making the delivery. So we were able to control that end-to-end process, and it was a prep person, member of staff turning up to make delivery, which was quite a nice personal touch. Are people going to be prepared to keep paying some of the high commission rates through delivery partners, or will the power shift to some of the courier companies who are out there? And there's some great ones in Stuart and Gopher that will provide you with a fleet of delivery people, either be bike or van, whatever the transportation may be, and then facilitate and allow you to kind of conduct deliveries yourself. How many people start to shift across to that method and then be able to keep the commission, which then you can reinvest into your delivery and pass that savings back to the customer and reinvest it into everything you do to operate delivery.
As someone who doesn't own a restaurant but works with a lot of restaurants, for a long-term view, for me, it's like an absolute winning strategy. I see it making the business, the brand, the company so much more valuable by having their own database of delivery customers. At the beginning it feels daunting because these guys are so dominant, and I've not got anything against them either. It's business. It's like, right, this is working. Does it work for us entirely? Is there a better model? But for a long-term view for a restaurant, I see it as an absolute power move, because it will just build the value of that brand and that business so much, because delivery isn't going anywhere, in my opinion.
Yeah. And
I just see it, if it was me, that's what I would be doing.
100% agree. And you're right, it is, again, nothing against any of the delivery partners out there. They serve, they do a great job. They serve a real kind of purpose to So many restaurants, they've been a real revenue driver, again, especially in the kind of the tough times that we've had where you've not been able to open in venue. Certainly moving across to your own delivery service where you have kind of control over that end-to-end process, I think is kind of invaluable. But I feel like having that deep relationship with with one or two courier companies and operating our own brand delivery would be something that's definitely on the agenda for hopefully not too distant future.
If brands are to launch in-house, for me, it's about marketing that service, marketing that offering. I imagine these brands like Gales and Pretz have huge marketing budgets. With your learnings, what's your take on engaging that audience? We have a methodology at Trapeze Media which is specifically related to hospitality marketing, which is an EAT methodology, which is engagement, awareness, trust. So engaging with your local audiences. If it's a small brand, we're usually talking about kind of local to the venue. Building awareness, we're using paid ads, it's strategic. We're looking at search to drive awareness, and then trust, which comes back to this, what we just talked about, building that trust with the customer, connecting with them.
Yeah.
And for me, those are three really key things to build into a marketing strategy. And I think that you can do a lot of marketing from the ground, and I do think that hospitality especially is so physical and it's every day, and it's all about kind of actually hard graft and hard work and talking to people and getting the word out, whether it's flyers, events, guerrilla pop-up stuff, and all of all of these types of ideas to connect with people. But in your experience, what have been some of the big wins, some of the things that have really worked for you for deliveries, and some approaches that you would consider?
It's a really good question, and I don't have one kind of single answer. I mean, I guess what you're asking for is a unicorn. What would be like the one thing that you could turn on that you know would have a massive impact? It's probably a combination of all of those things that you've just mentioned. And I kind of think back to the brands that I've worked from, all the way from Ocado, that have done handouts at tube stations, and have been so granular in their kind of marketing approach that it is someone just handing over voucher codes to draw attention to the brand, to high budget spend media campaigns to drive awareness. I think we've got a good database and quite an engaging database of people that are subscribed to our newsletters, so we're perhaps one step further down the line. Yeah, I don't think there is a sort of a single answer to that. I think it will be, especially when something is new, it will be the first time we've ever done delivery ourselves. We want to be able to offer click and collect and all of the other kind of digital channels that are available at the moment that we don't currently have. So it will be a case of, like I say, multiple campaigns and multiple tactics to be able to sort of drive awareness, and it might be everything from some subtle touches in venue to, like I say, a pop-up somewhere that is driving the delivery message. From our own platform, when I joined the business, which was about 7 or 8 weeks ago now, I implemented an analytics tool behind our website just to see what was happening. And what I found is, actually, whilst we have some meal kits, and our meal kits, biased I would say that, I believe our meal kits are very good. When I first joined the business, I had a couple delivered out to me, and I was really impressed with the quality of food and the way that they were coming out. But then when I kind of dug deeper into that, and you start to look at the customer behaviour, you actually quickly realise that we didn't really have a meal kit. What we had was a collection of products that you could order together. So what we were seeing on the website was that customers were probably being confused in terms of, we would show customers a price of something, and then if you made various amendments to that, the price would go up and down accordingly. So actually what you could see when you first landed on the website wasn't the final price that you would pay if you started to make amendments to the kits. So we standardised that, we looked at the sales mix, and then created some actual kits then. So one, it would streamline the process, and two, there was no hidden costs in anything. The price was the price, and that's what you're going to see at checkout. And that's, if you're going to order a hero kit with lamb fries, whatever the case may be, that's exactly what you were going to get. And the other thing that we could see in the analytics was that we were only ordering on or delivering on certain days, and we're seeing lots of customers fall out when they get to the calendar page. when it comes to actually picking your delivery date and you realise that actually it's Tuesday but I can't get delivery till next Monday, I didn't feel that that was suitable for the kind of times that we're in. In my opinion, food ordering is so emotive. People will pick up an app, go onto a website because they're hungry, and it's that need state of being hungry right now, feed me. And I think that that goes away if you start to order a meal kit but you can't get it for a week's time. It's like, well, you know, I don't know what I want in a week's time. I don't even know what I want to eat tomorrow. So, you know, you kind of need to be able to try to get food to a customer ASAP. And with the service that we have with DPD, we were actually paying for a next day delivery but not using the service because it was taking us time to be able to kind of prepare those kits in-house. So we changed our operations to then be able to offer next day delivery. So if you go on our website now, throughout the course of the week, you can order Wednesday for Thursday delivery, which is those kind of combinations of just taking away the complication from some of the meal kits that we had and offering kind of predetermined combinations and having and factoring in like a next day delivery. I've seen our conversion rate increase by and some weeks over 100%.
Amazing.
Which is it's quite a big increase in our conversion. I'm just quite pleased with that.
Well, Christian, this has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. I'm privileged to have been asked to do it. Thank you. It's been good.
And thanks for having us down here.
Welcome.
So, what's next for DirtyBones? What's coming up?
So we've partnered with Vitamojo to be able to relook at our kind of technology stack in-house and how we operate. We have on Monday of this week we're due to put our kiosk live in Westfield, which is our digital ordering screens. So that's built and ready to go. We have the barbecue kit that is obviously just gone out kind of to public sale, which is going well, and fingers crossed we have a really good summer weather-wise. I think there's a heat wave predicted, if I'm not wrong.
Oh yeah, so I hear.
So the barbecue kit would lend itself really well to that. And then obviously we have the partnership that we have with Vitamojo will see us then turn on sort of various ordering channels like our own delivery service and click and collect and all the things that we don't have at the moment that we're looking to implement over the coming weeks and months.
Awesome. I'm personally very excited to get that barbecue kit out in my garden. I absolutely cannot wait. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
And
Thank you.
see you soon.